Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Portland Film Festival, presented for the fourth consecutive year by Comcast. We want to thank our Comcast team for their tremendous support and commitment to independent filmmakers. Their support ensures that diverse voices are given a platform to share their perspectives with the world. We also want to thank Portland Mortgage, Corona Camera, and Oregon Film. If you'd like any more information or you'd like to buy tickets for any of our films, please go to pdxff.com. I'm Candace McDowell with the Portland Film Festival staff, and today I have the crew of Witness Underground. We have director Scott Homan, founder of Nuclear Gopher Ryan Sutter, and composer Eric Elvendahl. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for having us on.
So since this film is about your stories, can you tell us how you decided to come together and turn this into a film?
I'm gonna say, since Scott was the director, you go first, Scott.
I had this idea for a number of years that I wanted to tell a story that I thought wasn't really told before about my experience in the religion, being a musician and being being a musician in this religion, and then leaving the religion. And what I realized I could do best to tell that story was work with these group of artists that are included in the film, because there was a big art community that I was contemporary with. Like, my band existed while theirs were still going, and we were all friends in the religion, and they had a huge backlog of films and music, and we were all friends. So I thought I could better tell my story through their great catalog of art.
So for me, getting engaged in the movie started, I actually did not know Scott prior to this. I knew of him because Eric and I go way back. But basically about 3.5 years ago now, something like that, sometime beginning 2018, Scott messaged me and was telling me about the different films he was making about ex-Jehovah's Witness coming out stories, and that he wanted to talk to me about Nuclear Gopher and my personal story, etc. And so I wrote him this big 13 page Google Doc biography and sent it to him, and he's like, oh, okay, we're gonna make a feature then. Okay, there's a lot. That was kind of how it started, I think. And then I don't know, the last few years have all just been really, unexpected. I'll just go with that. Eric may have other perspectives.
I think it's a pretty good summary. Yeah, Scott just started working on this. I met Scott like a long time ago. We had mutual friends, and I walked into their kitchen one night, and he was sitting on the floor playing guitar, and we played Weezer songs and got to know each other, and then got closer over the years and shared a lot of philosophy and stuff. And we both had, like he was saying, our exit from that religion was kind of during the same time period. So we were all going through a lot of the same sort of huge existential realizations at the same time. And Ryan kind of went before us, and he was sort of like our Pied Piper in a way, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And so when he reached out, it was like, of course, and you can use all our music, like, let's do this.
Did it feel like a natural progression to turn this into a film? Because after seeing the film, which most people have that are watching this Q&A now, it's full of music, and you said early on how you were doing your own music videos. Does it feel just like this is, of course, that this should have turned into a film, or was it more surprising and maybe exciting that you were going to bring your stories together in a new format?
I'd say there was no of course about it, because there was such a long gap between the time when, like, I'd kind of already moved on in a lot of ways in my life, right? Like, Nuclear Gopher stopped 15, 16 years ago, and I've done other music and done other things since, and Eric has done other music and done other things since. But kind of going back and telling that story, and then also about what happened after, was not something I ever thought was going to happen. I'm really, really glad it did, though. I'll be totally honest. I wanted this story to be told for a long, long time. And so it was a big deal for me that that Scott came around and brought it together.
I'd say it also wasn't terribly obvious, or it wasn't a terribly obvious choice because of the social repercussions within this religion too. Like it's kind of a dicey move to make something like this or talk about it. I mean, because everyone in the film to varying degrees still has people in their family who are attached to the religion, and it could mean bad news for them as far as their relationships go. I mean, it could end relationships. And like, at least personally, I feel that with various members of my family, and old friends of mine, but it's our story to tell. And I think Scott did a fantastic job of doing it, and doing it in a way that wasn't some sort of religious hit job. It was much more about how we're living our lives positively afterwards. And we're not just trying to dig on the religion. It's more just about doing well in the wake of our experience.
I am nervous, though. I mean, I'm nervous even about more people seeing it, because to Eric's point, yeah, there's repercussions for us, right? We may already be on the outside of the group, and then that means that for the most part we're already being actively shunned by our family members. Like, nobody in my family ever talks to me, and hasn't done for 15 years, if they can help it. But it still feels like a risk, because we're making more people aware of a not very complimentary side of what the witnesses do, and they spend a lot of time out proselytizing and promoting for their idea that they have sort of the best way of living in the one true religion. So they don't like anything that even smells like a criticism, and they won't take the time to watch this as a general rule, or they won't be able to admit they have if they do. And so they will judge it based on what they think it is rather than based on what it is. And we're all kind of collectively very aware of this, right? And we kind of realize that, like, in for a penny, in for a pound here, right? Like, when we decided to tell the story, we're gonna have to just deal with what happens. But it is intimidating.
Have you put the film out on online platforms for people to watch? Because you probably are not going to do any screenings in that community, since, as you said, it's not acceptable. Is it online for people to watch?
The only places it's online so far are in film festivals. So of course, Portland Film Festival being the best one right now. It's quite a long festival, and it's a little bit more accessible than others. A lot of them are very, very tight regional or in person. So it's like one theater screening once. But that's it. I'm trying to get distribution, so we can't unlock it all the way yet.
Right. Well, this is a great platform, and this Q&A will be on YouTube as well. So you're welcome to share it wherever you want to. I'd love to hear how you put the film together, Scott. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces. You have testimonials, you have the band's music, you have the history of Nuclear Gopher and Ryan's story with his family and his brother. So were you the one who laid the script, the storyboard out for this, and kind of how that came together?
Hopefully my connection's good for this. It was quite a long process to weave all those pieces together that you laid out. I wanted to do something that was very nuanced, and like Eric said, not a hit job. We weren't trying to attack the religion. I wanted to humanize what the witness experience is like, because almost everyone thinks they know what it's like, what a Jehovah's Witness is like, what their life is like, but I almost guarantee you that you're wrong. Yes, we knock on doors, and yes, we don't celebrate birthdays, but there's so much more going on. And
you just said we.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, go
Sometimes
on.
you can't tear it out.
You got to put a quarter in the XJW jar, Scott.
But I wanted to tell something that was humanizing to the people who leave, because like we have all been others our whole lives as witnesses, and then after we leave, then there's a stigma about, oh, you're from a cult, great. And like, will we ever shake this weird reputation and othering that the regular humans on the planet are doing to us when they meet us? So part of my drive was to like just make something to answer all of those questions, I guess, that people have in their minds. And like, just watch my film and then we can talk about my real experience, because you're definitely not going to get it if we have a 3-hour conversation. Like, no one will get it. So anyway, there's a lot going on in the film, and I did want to do a bit of education, but I didn't really want to make an educational doc. I definitely wanted to tell something through art, and their art scene was so special. And I think that music can really emotionally convey. We can use music to connect emotionally to the subject matter, whereas most documentaries on the subject really focus on like policies and facts and someone's negative experience. So we want to do something that's just greater and has and then finish with a life after it gets better kind of thing at the end. Like, what is, like, if you're going to commit suicide because you had this terrible experience, like, don't, because like, hey, here's a bunch of people who made it out and they're fine. We might not be having the perfect life ever, but you know, we moved forward and it's generally healthy, much healthier.
There's a perception of people who leave the witnesses that is fostered within the witnesses, that the people who leave they spend the rest of their lives angry, they spend the rest of their lives miserable, they spend the rest of their lives just looking back with their fists raised, and they just want to hurt the people that that's what we were always told about the people who left. So it is really important, and I think it's really important. There's a lot of stuff on the internet that will allow you to analyze the beliefs. They will talk about the cultural things about child abuse or blood transfusions or other things within the witnesses. But there's not a lot out there that tries to just demonstrate that, like, the people who aren't witnesses anymore don't hate you. The people who aren't witnesses anymore aren't just angry. They can have a life. And I think that's important. If somebody is a witness today and they're thinking they have doubts or they have anything else that they have in mind, I think it's important for them to feel like they're not going to turn into, a demon by leaving. Right. Because I know I was afraid. Like, I was like, man, if I leave, do I really turn into this sort of horrible human being who spends the rest of my life, angry? Well, it's not true. And it's nice to see it put together. And it makes me really happy that Scott was able to do it out of all of this material that, means a lot to me. So, but I think that's the most important part of the film is whether somebody knows a witness, knows an ex-witness, is a witness, or maybe contemplating being an ex-witness. I think it's important to understand you got a choice about how you live your life and what you do. And that if you follow your own conscience and you do what you need to do as a human being, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be this bad guy that you've been taught. And for people who know people like us, hopefully develop some sympathy and empathy for us too, and help us have that bridge. So I think that makes this film really special.
And your music plays a huge part in this film. Can you tell us some about that experience of getting to put your music into this film, what that was like for all of you?
Well, that day we recorded, it was extremely seat of the pants. Ryan has this awesome farm that he lives on, and there's this building that we cleaned the whole thing out and brought a ton of gear in and set up a billion microphones and a computer system and, just played. I thought we were rehearsing, and then it's like, oh, we're done. And they had the whole film crew there and stuff. And it went really well. It was super fun. I thought that came out nicely. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that, Ryan?
Well, yeah, I mean, everything we used to do was always so kind of seat of the pants and DIY, and we didn't have money or fame. We were just doing this because we totally loved it. So the parts where that wound up coming into the movie feel the most like awesome to me, right? Like the day that we got together and did that, like Eric and Cindy and Chad and I have all played music with each other on various points, but not in a long time, and never with the drummer who was there. And to just show up and just be like, this is all happening and these guys are filming it, and then have it actually turn out to be cool, just made me like remember what it used to be like when we would just like, here's the date, some things are going to happen, and next thing you know, you got hundreds of people showing up and you've got a show and you've got all these lifelong memories. So super cool. And I loved when I started to hear how Scott, what basically I did is I uploaded a huge archive of a bunch of our old releases and music, and I said, Scott, go ahead, just cherry pick from here. And so I got to watch how Scott got to interpret what he found in the musical archive, and then put it into the context of the movie. And for me, that was super fun too, because he used some music of mine that I didn't even remember recording or remember what it sounded like. And it was just neat. It was like recontextualizing a bunch of stuff that was super important to me. So it was a cool experience, actually.
I mean, this film is an emotional journey. You definitely take the viewer on an emotional journey, which was incredible, really. Like, you really do experience that as you're watching it from someone on the outside. And for me, I love to see towards the end how you had everybody, Scott, you had everybody playing together at the end, because I felt grief for you and sadness for you as I'm watching your stories, and I'm hearing the fracturing that's happening within your family and the community you've known forever, and having to start a new life. That's grief, that's loss, and everyone can relate to that and have empathy and compassion and connect with that. And to see that you all have connected together is very encouraging. I loved that kind of ending. So do you think you'll make an album to go with this film? Or is that a one-time thing for you guys?
There's a lot of talk about that. We have some soundtrack ideas, but I'll let these guys talk more about the future plans.
I want to know Eric's future plans. I know mine.
Well, I mean, can we talk about the show, Scott?
Sure. It's a different festival, but yeah.
Yeah, so obviously we're happy to be in the Portland Film Festival, but there's another one in Minneapolis that's super cool, called Sound Unseen, where they basically take over every awesome theater in town and play nothing but music documentaries. And they got their hands on Witness Underground and they loved it. And so they're setting us up at this beautiful, beautiful theater called the Women's Club Theater. It seats like 600 people. They used to do shows there, and I saw all kinds of amazing bands back in the day. I'm so happy to be able to do our thing there. And then after that, we're playing a show at Hook and Ladder. So this past month has been really fun because the band I'm in with Ryan right now, called Awkward Bodies, we're playing a bunch of his songs, and then my wife's band Puff Puff is playing, and then our other band High TV is playing. So it's like rehearsals 3 days a week, which it feels like I'm 19 again, and it's been an absolute blast. And we're hoping to keep some sort of momentum going because it's just been really fun. It's been really nice to spend time with everybody. Yeah, beyond that, I've got some soundtrack work I'm doing and whatever, but that's in the future. I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say.
So the thing about Eric is that he loves to mix live sound, and we're doing a really big deal at that concert that's being thrown for us for all these bands and recording it. So there will be a live mix down, and I'm sure Eric will play with it and make it sound amazing like he always does. But yeah, so there's like a soundtrack of all the bands in the film, plus the special guest Puff Puff and Ryan's music, and it's just gonna be such a special time this whole month right now. And then of course we're talking about putting together a vinyl release that's like, this is the music from the film. There's like 42 songs in the film, but we'll probably put like 15 of the best songs, and we'll get a proper mix down. Ryan's talking about taking it to England to the Abbey Road studios just because of like how cool that is, and making a legit album from this.
Yeah, when you can take all the weird stuff you did in your teens and 20s and have an excuse to go back and revisit it, and then with new tools, better technology, clean it up, repackage it, mix it, master it, make it sound really good, do it justice. It's kind of a cool opportunity. So we're definitely going to be pushing that, getting together that vinyl soundtrack release. And then, I mean, I really sincerely hope High TV keeps making more music after this and keeps some momentum. I know that I plan to. And I'm going to bring the nucleargopher.com site back. So this is sort of creating a new chapter. Who knows what that's going to look like, but I think we're definitely not going to just sit back and talk about music from 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, punk is making a really big comeback too. So if you have that little bit of that girl punk, who is the artist, the female artist that was singing in your film? What was her name?
That's my wife, Cindy Elvendahl. Yeah,
Okay.
she's
I didn't put
okay.
She's okay. Yeah, she's all right.
I liked it. I put a ring on it. Beyonce.
I've known both those kids for a long time before they were married, and I'm really glad they got together because they're both awesome.
Thanks, man.
There's a lot of love in our group here, by the way. You can probably tell. Like that's a huge deal for us, is to at least keep. That's how we stay in touch, and why we that's kind of the most important thing. Like, and we all still love all of our old ex-witness friends and family too. So, it's be our preference that we could all just keep doing good stuff and having fun and being creative together.
I think there's a moment in the film where I say something along those lines that, yeah, we loved making music and we all love being artists and stuff, but it was also an excuse to maintain the relationships we had, because we had just this immensely amazing group of friends, and being in a band is a great way to have to see each other every week or whatever. Making a record is, spend a whole weekend tracking drums because your drummer sucks, but you still get to hang out and have a good time. It was a good way to do that.
Do you have a current website right now where people can find out more information about what you all are doing?
Scott? So witnessunderground.com is the main place right now to keep up with news, watch the trailer, and watch related content. There's a side project that kind of launched this whole thing from 5-6 years ago that we're still doing, called XJW Coming Out. And so you can see links to some of that stuff on there, and our YouTube channel, which is on there. So witnessunderground.com is the easiest place to go. Simple to remember. But then there's a couple things I want to say. One of the big things I want to do with this film is to break the barrier that the people in this religion are coerced to create and erect between family on the inside and family on the outside, or friends on the outside. And it's the religion is forcing them to do that. But we want to have a connection to these people. So that's one point I want to make. The other is like cool, fun thing that Ryan is really focusing on is relaunching Nuclear Gopher, the website, but also a recording studio. So there's like an art life that will move forward, as well as, of course, their bands are staying together, and we're going to make new music. So it's really exciting to see that there's this future life, and it's not, like you said, not just a nostalgic thing. So nucleargopher.com, nucleargopher.org has a bunch of archival stuff on it from the past. You can go listen to all of that.
Yeah, nucleargopher.com, you'll just see a placeholder page at the moment, but we're working on some things, and it's going to be, it's not going to just be nostalgia, to Scott's point. We're all still actively creative and hope to be till we die, I think, speaking for me and Eric. So yeah, that's it. That's what we're doing.
For people who watch your film that don't have any kind of history or knowledge about Jehovah Witnesses, are you hoping that they take anything away from this film?
That's an interesting question. I think we all have sort of different answers about that. I guess I'll go first, since I'm talking. I think if someone had like zero knowledge about the Witnesses and they saw this, I would hope that they would empathize with them and see them as a group of people that really are incredibly decent people for the most part. I mean, they're like any group of people, you're going to have a mix, but they really mean well. But they believe some things that make them behave in ways that are incredibly harmful to others. And to not see them as the villain, but to see the ideology as the villain, if there is one. And also to understand that when people leave, it's kind of a life-destroying thing to go through. And like it's like we emerge as like baby birds, into the real world. Like I've never celebrated Christmas, like I I would have refused a blood transfusion for my daughter if she needed it, and she could have died. That happens regularly. I mean, go search Google News. It happens all the time. So we emerge into the world sort of as we're like in a pupa stage of human beingness, and it's in many ways it's a double-edged sword, because it's a horrible thing to go through, but it also, I think it has a way of deepening us emotionally. We're a little bit more aware than someone who's never gone through something quite as traumatic as losing your entire family and all your friends and being told you're going to burn when the world goes down. That has a way of maturing you in a way. So there are definitely there's a positive side to that, which I think it makes you a little slower to judge people and far more empathetic to certain groups. Like Scott's other project, he was talking about the XJW coming out thing. That name isn't an accident. It has. He's talked about this in the past. Like there are parallels there with non-gender normative people, or I mean, like people, basically homosexual people coming out. There's a similar thing where you're forced to deny your nature for a long time, and then when you speak your truth about who you are, you're rejected by your entire support system in many cases. And it's different for everybody, but there's a lot of commonality there. And in one of his XJW coming out episodes is with a guy who both came out as not being a witness anymore and came out as a homosexual, and he talks about his experience, and he had like the double whammy. I mean, that's insane. So I guess to answer your question, I would just hope that people would get sort of a more nuanced perspective on the witnesses, because I think most people's perception of witnesses, they're just those nice people that wake you up on Saturday morning and want to hand you a magazine. And they are that, but there's also a price to pay for it, and there are things to gain from it. There's a much larger story, and I hope this film does something to illuminate that. That was a really long answer. I'm sorry.
I've got a shorter answer. I think that I want to get people curious enough to research this on behalf of whatever people in their lives, including potentially themselves, that they need to be researching on behalf of. We don't try to provide all the answers or anything like that. We're not, it's like, again, to Scott's point, it's not an explanatory documentary that goes through point by point. But I do think that it's important that people, there's so much information out there, and the problem is that it's really hard to find sort of balanced information. You have a lot of a lot of debunking, a lot of mocking, a lot of like a lot of sort of emotionally tinged stuff on both sides of what's out there. The witnesses teach a lot of stuff that is pretty disrespectful to people who aren't witnesses, and the people who used to be witnesses are often extremely disrespectful about the witnesses. And I guess I'd rather see a world where, like, people are able to recognize that that, you know, everybody involved in this is human beings. We're all dealing with the best we can. Go learn about facts, do what you need to do for your own beliefs and for your own, you know, your own life, and do your own research. And, you know, I'm glad I wouldn't have wanted to do this movie if it had just been a hit job takedown, you know, here's all the doctrinal stuff. Like, I did that research for myself. I wrote a ton about what I was learning that actually helped bring other people out of the religion that I was, but that wasn't my goal. It was me doing my research for me. So I would like other people to do their research for themselves too, but I would like them to see this film and have enough curiosity and interest in it to decide what, you know, how they want to respond next. I hope they don't just watch it and move on.
One other quick thing before I let the director talk. I would also like people to see the power that music has, and being creative and making stuff can save your life. It can get you through anything. And I think in many ways, music just kind of happened to be the main thing we were doing, but just to understand that the raw power of creativity and how it creates community, and how it's I heard this incredible interview with the author Sherman Alexie once, where he was talking with this woman, Carrie Miller, on NPR. And he said he always wanted to be a musician. And he's a very, very successful author. But he said he always wanted to be a musician because he said music operates below the belt. And he got a big laugh out of the audience. But he was talking about how there's something intuitive and healing about the musical process. And I think this movie does an excellent job of showing that. And I hope that comes across to the audience.
And then point that I guess to segue from Eric is that it'd be great if someone watched this film who was going through something similar, from a similar community. It could be a different religion, would see they could take a leap and be expressive. A lot of religions are kind of don't want people to express themselves, especially the more high control ones like Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or Orthodox Jewish. And also there's a lot of similar experiences and parallels through those other religions in this country and around the world, that hopefully people from those other religions or people who are curious about them would watch this and get to know what that sort of exit experience is like and have more empathy.
Yeah, because it's not really just about witnesses. You're right. There's so many parallel situations. One of the first showings of this, actually the first one I was at in Wisconsin, somebody came up to me after the film who was not related to the witnesses, who had no previous knowledge of any of us, whatever, but was a trans man, and he was in tears, and he was like, I just came here because my friend was coming to the thing and said, you know, do you want to tag along? And I was like, sure, free movie. And was like, that hit me so hard because there was so much happening in there that was parallel to my own story. And I have no religious background. I have none of this. Like, I don't know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses. And that really hit me because I was like, yeah, because it's a parallel human experience about being controlled, using creativity, thinking your way through, and then surviving the consequences. Witnesses are not the only context of that. It's just the one we happen to be in. So I think that is a really I think that's another reason why it's important that it doesn't harp on the witness stuff as much. I don't even think the specific religion we were in is the most important part of this.
There is a resource I'll just plug right now that I've been exploring, and I think it's really interesting for people if they're going through a religious problem or they're curious. It's called recoveringfromreligion.org. It's an organization that's been around for like 10 years, and they help you work through whether it's, you know, suicide prevention or finding a therapist or who's like specialized in this kind of thing. There's a lot of good resources out there. We live in a day and age where you can find them quickly and easily, but that's one really good one to touch base with, at least to start. But yeah, to Ryan's greater point, this is a deeply human experience. And I think anyone who goes through what we went through, we have a master's degree in cult thinking, and we can see this stuff from a mile away. And it's not just religions. It could be a workplace environment or a community that you get involved with. It's just the same kinds of patterns, and cults are just really good at hanging on to members and controlling them in some way.
Well, thank you for telling this story. For those watching, if you haven't seen it or you would like to see it again, it's showing at pdxff.com. Go scroll through the movies. It's called Witness Underground. They also have a website called witnessunderground.com. Be ready for some good music that's going to be coming from them in the future. Check out their website for dates of events, and make sure you follow these guys and see what they're up to. Also, you can still vote on this film. So if this is your favorite, please go vote for the audience vote. Thank you so much for joining me here today and sharing the background of this great film.
Thanks so much, Candace.
Yeah, thank you for having
Candace.
us.
That was great.
Really appreciate it.